Hello everybody, and welcome to Holsing's 2020 Week 5 Make and Create. My name is Mr. Edwards, and this here is Charlie the Chimp. Why don't you say hello, Charlie?
Hello everybody, I hope you're all keeping safe and that.
Good stuff. So, on this week's Make and Create, we are going to make and create something musical. We're going to make and create something called a chord progression. We are going to learn actually the 4 chords that are used in this week's featured song, Shotgun. We're going to learn these chords on guitar and on the keyboard.
Great, but what is a chord progression?
Good question, Charlie. What is a chord progression? Well, a chord progression, I know some of you all know this, is a series of chords, quite often 4 chords, that repeats and is used in the section of a song, for instance, the chorus of the song, the bit that we kind of all remember.
Yeah, okay, but what's a chord?
What is a chord? Right. Chords are very important in music because chords quite often provide the background or the accompaniment to the melody or the tune that's being sung or played over the top. A chord is basically 2 or more notes played at the same time, but structured in such a way that it sounds pleasing to the ear. Okay. So, for instance, us beginners guitarists, we've quite often learned these chord shapes. Okay. Several notes played at the same time, structured in a way that sounds nice. Okay, so that was actually a chord of A, a chord of D, and a chord of G, as I know lots of you will know.
Hey, can you play a chord on a trumpet?
Great question. No is the answer. A trumpet cannot play a chord because the trumpet is what we call a monophonic instrument. In other words, it can only play 1 note at a time. Whereas an instrument such as the guitar, or the piano, or the organ, or the harp, is what we call a polyphonic instrument because it can play lots of notes at the same time. And that makes them really good instruments for playing chords.
Right, yeah, but how do you make a chord?
Another great question, Charlie. How do we make a chord? Well, I think at this point we need to move over to the keyboard and we'll show you how we structure a chord that sounds nice. It's easier to see on the keyboard. Then we'll move back to the guitar and I will show you the 4 bar chords that we use for the song Shotgun.
Yeah, can a flute play a chord?
No.
Can a clarinet play a chord?
No.
Can a bassoon play a chord?
No.
Can a tuba play a chord?
So, here is Charlie's electronic keyboard, and I know that a lot of you will have one of these at home. Basically, it's the electronic version of a piano, right? It's got fewer keys, but we can get a nice piano sound out of it. Actually, this leads me to our fact of the day.
Yay, fact of the day. I love fact of the day.
Yeah, me too. Now, today's fact of the day is this. The very earliest keyboard instrument has been documented as far back as the 3rd century BC. And it was an ancient Greek instrument, very similar to an early pipe organ. And it was called a hydraulis. What do you think to that, Charlie?
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? So look, for the next few minutes, you're not going to see my handsome face, because we're going to focus on the keys of the keyboard and we're going to learn how to construct some chords.
Hey, I'm the handsome one round here. You're just the brains of the operation.
Fair enough. So here we are at the keyboard. Now the first thing I'm going to do, and I know a lot of you will know this, is I'm going to play a C major scale, all the white notes from this C to this C here. Finding middle C is fairly easy. There's a great video by Mr. Miller actually on finding middle C. But if you look for the 2 black keys, closest to the middle of your keyboard. Middle C is the white key to the left of the two black keys. So, here's my C major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. But now I'm going to give them numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Guys, I can build a chord on each one of those notes of the scale. So let's start with C. To make a chord, I'm going to play a C. Then I'm going to miss out a note and play the next note. Then I'm going to miss out another note and play the next note. 3 notes played together. Yay, we've got a chord of C.
Cool.
Look at that shape, guys. I'm using my thumb, my second finger and my little finger, and it feels really comfortable. Here's the thing though, I can go up the scale of C using that shape, and then we get 7 chords. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're back home to chord 1 again.
It's like the notes are socially distancing.
Yeah, it is, Charlie. That's a good idea. So, guys, we call these notes of each chord. We call the first note the root. The second note we call the third, because we've missed out the second note. And there's the third one. And then we call this one, I bet you've guessed it, the fifth. Root, third, and fifth. 3 of the chords in a scale are happy, nice chords. They're major chords. These are chords 1, 4, and 5. 3 of the chords are a little bit sadder sounding. These are the minor chords on 2, 3, and 6.
I'm getting sad.
Oh, don't worry, Charlie. Let's talk about chord 7. Chord 7's a bit strange. We call it a diminished triad.
Sounds terrifying.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So, let's create a chord sequence or a chord progression. Now, Charlie, I'd like to for you to give me 4 numbers between 1 and 6.
1, 3, 4, 5.
1, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to hold each chord for 4 beats. Here's chord 1, 2, 3, chord 3, chord 4, chord 5. I can repeat it and play on every beat. It's brilliant.
Yay, what's your left hand doing?
My left hand, Charlie. Well, my left hand is just going to play the first note of each chord, right? So for chord 1, it's going to play a C. For the next chord, which is chord 3, it's going to play an E. For the next one, chord 4, the left hand is going to play an F. And then for chord 5, you've guessed it.
Oh yeah, G.
That's right, Charlie, a G. So here we go. Brilliant. So we've created a little chord progression in the key of C. Now, for the song Shotgun by George Ezra, he actually uses the key of F. Now, some of you might have to learn your F major scale because it has a sneaky B flat in it. Here's our F major scale. We can make chords just like we did with the C scale. Remembering our B flat.
Pure boss, that is.
Now, if we look at the chords progression for Shotgun, it uses chords 1, 4, 6, and 5. So we find chord 1, we move up to chord 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Then we go from there to 6, 4, 5, 6. And then we move back down to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey Charlie, do you want to sing the chorus of Shotgun?
Okay then.
Cool, let's do it. I'll give you a counting. 1, 2, 3.
I'll be riding shotgun underneath the hot sun. You have got my shotgun. I'll be riding shotgun. You are in the hot sun. I have got a shotgun.
Oh, Charlie, that was great. That was so good. Fantastic. Charlie, do you reckon we need to move back to the guitar now and we'll show the guitarist how to play those 4 chords as bar chords?
Okie dokie.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you Guitarist's 4 bar chord shapes that'll help you to play this chord sequence to Shotgun, but also bar chord shapes are really useful because once you've learned a couple of basic bar chord shapes, of course you can move them up and down the fretboard, and this is really good if you're trying to make your own chord progression. So, are you ready, Charlie? Shall we crack on?
I was born ready.
Great. So, I'm going to show you 3 basic bar chord shapes. The first one is going to be the dreaded F bar chord, this one here. The next one is going to be a minor bar chord shape, and we're going to look at D minor, which is up here based on the 5th fret here. And then the 3rd bar chord shape is another major chord shape, but it's slightly different. It's here, it's C. Now, actually these shapes you will know if you've done a bit of beginner guitar playing, because they're actually based on 3 open chord shapes. Yeah, in other words, these beginner chords that we learn. So there's our E. The minor chord shape that this D minor is based on is A minor. I know a lot of you will know that. And then this C one is based on our A open chord shape. But of course we've moved this up the fretboard. Right, Charlie?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so when we make a bar chord, basically our finger, and it's quite often our first finger, is basically covering all the strings, okay? And in effect what this does is it makes the open strings, that open string sound, gradually get higher.
Groovy, it's like jazz.
Yeah. Guys, it's going to take you a little while, and also depending on your guitar, to get used to playing these bar chords. Some big acoustic guitars is really quite tricky because you've got big thick strings and you're going to have to get used to that first finger pressing down, and it also quite often you need to support it with one of your other fingers just so that all the strings ring out. Okay, now let's look at the F bar chord shape. If we look at E, we can see that our fingers here on the fretboard are going 2nd fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret on our A, D, 2nd fret, 2nd fret, 1st fret on our A, D and G strings. And we're using our 1st, 2nd and 3rd finger. 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Now if I was to move that shape up 1 fret, we've got up 1 note or 1 chord shape from E to F. But here's the thing. In order for that to sound right, we can't go like this. Well, actually, that sounds quite cool, doesn't it? But if we want an F, proper F major, we need to then use our 1st finger, and it's almost like this part of the guitar, the nut, is moving gradually upwards, isn't it?
Oh, nuts! I love nuts!
Yeah, not those type of nuts.
I'm hungry. Can we have some nuts?
Yeah, well, maybe later. Okay, let's do these chords. So, let's make now our F bar chord. So look, remember it's an E shape, but because we're using our first finger now to make the bar chord, we've got to replace 1, 2 and 3 with 2, 3 and 4 upper fret, so that our first finger can now make that bar chord shape. Guys, you need to practice this a lot, yeah? So make the shape, take your fingers off, make the shape again. And you'll find that it might be you might get a little bit of pain in your fingers.
Oh, it hurt me paws at first.
Yeah, that's right. But the more you do it, the more you get used to it. So look, F, let's strum an F bar chord. And by the way guys, there's going to be a little sheet with all these chord diagrams coming up after I've shown you these 4 chords. So, F. Now, if we take that shape and we just move it up gradually, in fact I'm going to play each one. 1 fret, 3rd fret. Here, 6th fret is the chord of B flat major. So now, because remember, the 4 chords in shotgun are F, B flat, D minor and C, or chords 1, 4, 6 and 5. Do you remember?
How could I forget?
Cool. So, now we can move from F up to B flat on the 6th fret with the same shape. So we played our first 2 chords. For now, while you're practicing the chord shapes, just strum each chord once. Try and get those strings to all ring out. Move to B flat. Cool. Now let's look at our D minor. This is based on an A minor chord shape, but in the same way, we've taken that shape and we've moved it up here. But we can't go like that, although I think that sounds good again. But for our D minor, we need to put a bar over the 5th fret and substitute our fingers, making the same shape. And this time we're going to pluck from the A string. And here's our D minor. Okay, again, practice playing it up the fretboard. Cool.
That's a great progression.
Yeah. So, finally, C. C is based, well, this bar chord of C is, again, based on an open A chord shape. But we're going to take that shape and move it up to our 5th fret and bar on our 3rd fret. Swap the fingers around, pluck from your A string, and you've got a C bar chord. Again, you could move it up and down, experiment. That's D. E. You can see I just caught a string there, so it takes a bit of practice, but the more you play these bar chords, the easier it gets. Let's play all 4 chords, bar chords, in order, shall we?
Yay!
Cool, Charlie. Here we go. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. F, 2, 3. B flat, 2, 3. D minor, 2, 3. C, 2, 3, 4.
Solid that, solid.
Once you get used to playing the bar chords, put a bit of rhythm in with your right hand. Practice. And it's a great little chord sequence. This is what we call a common chord progression or chord sequence. That's great, guys. Listen, the worksheet with all these bar chord positions is coming up now.
It's coming up now.
So guys, I hope you've all enjoyed the make and create chord progression. Remember, experiment with your own chords, come up with your own chord progressions, and don't forget, tomorrow the Albemarle Broadband at 1:30 on the Whole Music Hub website, wholemusichub.com, will be performing Shotgun. We can't wait, can we, Charlie?
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
It is. Let's say goodbye. Bye. Say goodbye, Charlie.
Goodbye, Charlie. Hee hee hee. Gotcha.